Welcome everyone to my channel, Act on Mental Health. I'm thrilled to have you here with me. Today we're going to be talking about the topic of acceptance from a Christian perspective. Now in my first video, I mentioned that before I was a mental health counselor, that I was actually a pastor for 15 years. 8 of those years as a youth and families pastor, and 7 of those years as a lead pastor. So this blend of experience and education allows me to speak with confidence and competency on this topic. So I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. So whether you're a religious person who actively practices their Christian faith by attending church or mass, or whether you consider yourself a Christian but you don't have a specific community, or you're just Christian friendly and you like to learn new things, I'm here to tell you that acceptance is fundamental to the Christian faith and biblical story. Acceptance is a key component of acceptance and commitment therapy, and it's crucial with dealing with challenges like anxiety, depression, and emotional disorders. But let me make something clear. ACT didn't create acceptance as a strategy for facing challenges. The Bible didn't call it acceptance, but used phrases like endurance, outlasting whatever challenges that show up in life. The early Desert Fathers had a similar strategy, and we'll explore their wisdom too. One of the central metaphors for cultivating hopeful endurance is of Mary and Martha, and we'll actually do some exercises imagining sitting with Jesus. Throughout our journey, we'll unpack several metaphors that help us understand the role of acceptance in living out our values. Acceptance isn't the final destination, but it's a path to open up opportunities to pursue what truly matters to us. For Christians, this journey involves hopeful and patient endurance, much like the path that Jesus has paved for us. There might be psychological pain along the way, but remember, Jesus himself is the suffering servant as shown in Isaiah 53. By following in the footsteps of Jesus, you'll not only endure, but also live out a set of virtues, deepening your sense of meaning, purpose, and experiencing psychological and spiritual growth. And to wrap it all up, we'll practice several exercises that will help you experience acceptance in the context of following Jesus. These exercises are not just theories, they are practical tools you can carry with you into your daily life. Above all, this video aims to help you relate differently to those painful inner experiences, because sometimes the struggle with them can be even more distracting than the symptoms themselves. Together, we'll learn how to navigate life's challenges mindfully and improve our mental well-being. Now, without further ado, let's begin our exploration of acceptance and the path it lays out for us. But first, let's start with the Mary model. So join me as we learn the power of acceptance through her inspiring story. The story of Mary and Martha comes from chapter 10 of the Gospel of Luke. For those who are unfamiliar with their story, allow me to provide a snapshot of the scene. Mary and Martha are sisters who open their home to Jesus while he's traveling with his disciples. This wasn't a planned trip per se, but something that they willingly offered to show hospitality to Jesus and welcome him into their home. Now that's a beautiful image of what every believer does when they invite Jesus into their heart and life. But if you've ever shown hospitality to a large group, then you know that you need to make room in the house and get the guests something to eat. So Martha got things ready while Mary chose to sit at Jesus' feet to listen to the wisdom of Christ. In a real sense, Martha exemplifies the external life and the cares of the world. Her focus is on preparation and hospitality, which is a lot of work for one person. Mary exemplifies the internal life and quietly attending to the cares of the soul, the inner life. Her focus is on Jesus, the main guest, and attentively listening without care for time and task. As the story goes, Martha quickly becomes frustrated at the sight of her sister apparently doing nothing to help make things ready for Jesus. So she stops what she's doing and asks Jesus a question. Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Jesus replies, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Jesus identifies Martha's concern with the external world and says that's not the priority at the moment, but only one thing is needed. And he identifies Mary's choice of sitting at his feet, listening, as what is better. So we're going to come back to this story in a moment. Now let's talk about ACT. In this section, we'll go even deeper into the concept of acceptance as we explore the ACT model. Acceptance in the context of ACT is intended to help us open to our most unpleasant inner experiences. This includes dealing with difficult emotions, often linked to depressive and anxiety disorders. It's crucial to understand that avoiding these painful emotions has likely led to lives that don't quite work. This is because much of our time is spent in constant battle against pain, rather than living out our values. When we experience pain, it's as if we could stand at a crossroads. One path leads to a cozy village called acceptance, and the path is the pursuit of our values. It's essential to recognize that this path comes with the potential for distress. The residents of this village, while willing to live out their values, will inevitably come up short from time to time, leading to feelings of sadness, hurt, fear, and anxiety. However, from the perspective of this village of acceptance, these emotions aren't problematic on their own. In fact, they can enrich daily living. Sadness signifies that something important may have been missed, prompting us to reconnect with our values. Anxiety is a sign of the need to take action, anticipating potential challenges. Anger helps us in understanding perceived injustice that require correction, while guilt reminds us to make amends for perceived wrongs. In this village, uncomfortable emotions have a purpose, and they are not automatically avoided or averted. The residents fully embrace the entire spectrum of emotions because they understand that the inner world offers the opportunity to experience all of life, not just the positive emotions of daily living. On the other hand, the other path leads to a village called avoidance. The path is pursuit of comfort, relief, and happiness. There may be moments of pleasure, but they often come at a cost of stifling unpleasant emotions. The townspeople here struggle to connect with their values, missing out on a life devoted to a deeper sense of meaning, vitality, and zeal. The pain of missing out on life regularly creeps into the daily lives of the inhabitants of this village. They experience a sense of loss, wondering what it might be like to live in a community that embraces all of life, even its disappointments, given that taking risks can also lead to meaning and growth. Now, acceptance is not about eliminating pain. It's about opening up to life's experiences, including the painful ones, in pursuit of our values. And it's all about where do we want to live? What kind of life do we want to live? Acceptance or avoidance? Because the path will look a lot different. Now let's explore this idea of patient endurance, often referred to as hupomone in Greek. It captures the ability to stay present to whatever experiences arise. This hopeful endurance is key, and it's about faithfully attending to what's happening because we can trust that God is present. This word was used over 24 times in the New Testament to help early Christians to persevere in persecution and times of distress due to external circumstances they didn't control. Interestingly, the early desert Christians, right after the early church, similarly described relating to inner experiences with more patience and tenderness, even adding a sense of hope, using the word hupomone to encourage endurance. Among the early desert Christians, an important part of daily living involved staying put in their cells, which was a small room that they chose to live in. Now, rather than moving from place to place, the monks who resided in the deserts of Egypt, Syria, and Palestine would make it a point to stay in one place, in the cell. From both a psychological and spiritual perspective, the purpose of staying in the cell involved getting to know what was going on within the internal world, cultivating the ability to focus on God's active, loving presence as each moment unfolded. This term hupomone describes a plant that continues to grow despite being rooted in a harsh environment. Therefore, to be hopeful enduring the difficult inner world of depressive or anxiety-related symptoms means to continue to push forward. For Christian monks within the desert, they experienced an added sense of hope because God resided with them in the cell, helping them as they face a variety of unpleasant inner events from day to day. The following teachings from the sayings of the Desert Fathers seems to capture endurance within the cell, offering an accurate view of the importance of patience in monastic life. The mark of the monk becomes apparent in temptations. Eat, drink, and sleep. Only do not leave your cell, knowing that remaining patiently in the cell brings a monk up to what he should be. Go, stay in your cell. Give your body as a warranty to the wall of your cell, and do not come out of there. Let your thoughts think what they like, but do not put your body out of your cell. Just as an opponent fights in a wrestling match, so ought the wrestler meaning the monk, to withstand his thoughts, stretching out his hands to heaven and calling on God for aid. As the above sayings reveal, the purpose of enduring in the cell was to face the various temptations that arose from day to day, staying present to inner experiences. The reason why difficult inner events can be endured certainly is because God is with you, helping you through a variety of mental and emotional challenges as each moment unfolds. And learning that in the cell is how these monks came to be spiritually developed. In my ministry network in Wisconsin, they held an annual silent prayer retreat at their campgrounds. Each minister was given their own small cabin for 3 days. They held a devotional time together where the director would quote from the Desert Fathers and 15th century Christians who originally developed the silent prayer model. Silent prayer was something that was new for me before embarking on my first silent prayer retreat. And as you can imagine, it was strange to sit in a room silently. In fact, to be completely honest, I wasn't good at this at all. I would walk and talk as I prayed out of habit, but it was just hard for me to pray in my head. Each retreat, I got better and better at disciplining myself to be silent, to be present with the Lord. But it was a hard lesson to learn. One of my favorite memories was borrowing a kayak and making my way to the middle of the small lake there, and just being in awe of the beauty of fall and nature and having no words to say. Now, if you've made it this far into the video and you found the content valuable, hit the like button and share it on social media and subscribe. This gives me feedback that says my viewers want more videos like this, and it creates a visceral bump in my mood when I see a video is connecting with my audience. In Luke's gospel, Mary simply sat at the feet of Jesus, focusing on him as Martha scurried about, anxiously driven to fix her environment. For Mary, the present moment was about yielding to Jesus' presence, patiently listening to him. For Christians struggling with emotional disorders, this Mary state of mind can be especially helpful, given the emphasis on simply sitting at Jesus' feet, with nowhere else to be and nothing else to do, yielding to his loving care. To deepen our understanding of the Mary mode, we can introduce another layer of insight. Cultivating a sense of hopeful and patient endurance while being in the presence of Jesus becomes particularly significant. This importance arises from the central focus and emphasis of Jesus' eventual return. In simpler terms, the ability to endure inner pain is achievable because Christians can direct their attention to Jesus, who serves as the perfect model of perseverance, even in the face of immense suffering. Throughout the ages, Christians have found hope and endurance through their faith in Jesus, and he is the very reason endurance is possible, as he too endured suffering and paved the way for Christians to follow in his footsteps. Additionally, when we sit at Jesus' feet, much like Mary, endurance becomes possible because God's promise of eventual restoration assures us that the pain that we experience in this life is not a permanent state. Acknowledging the inevitability of pain in this fallen world is important to understanding the task at hand, following Jesus despite inner distress. Since psychological pain is temporary, Christians can firmly hold on to the hope in a different, more promising future state, allowing them to endure the present moment. This concept is similar to a long-distance runner glimpsing the finish line, providing the motivation to persist in the race. To draw a parallel with your life, you may be currently struggling with a long list of symptoms associated with an emotional disorder. Yet recognizing that Jesus will eventually return, you can work toward patiently sitting at his feet, focusing exclusively on him, and acknowledging that his presence is enough for now. In other words, rather than frantically hurrying about, anxiously driven to fix, like Martha, you can approach your situation as Mary might, capturing this ability to sit patiently in one place, given that Jesus' presence is sufficient. Perseverance is also possible based on the reality of Jesus' eventual return. In addition to thinking about acceptance and a hopeful, patient endurance like Mary, it may be helpful to consider a few other biblical metaphors to make sense of acceptance for Christians. Acceptance and hopeful endurance can be likened to Paul's thorn mentioned in 2 Corinthians 12. Just as Paul was able to reinterpret his thorn as a blessing from God, we too can find God's providence in our depressive or anxiety-related symptoms. By making room for them as we follow Jesus, we trust that God will sustain us even in our struggles. Another metaphor for acceptance and hopeful endurance can be drawn from the parable of the lost son in Luke 15. Despite the pain we may be feeling, we can run into God's loving arms, much like the prodigal son did, trusting that he will embrace us and celebrate us, eagerly awaiting our return. Endurance, acceptance, and trust in God's providence can also be seen in the story of Noah and his family in the Old Testament. They faced uncertainty as they waited patiently on the ark for the waters to recede, yet they continued to press forward, confident that God had a plan for them in spite of their likely uncertainty. Acceptance and hopeful endurance are mirrored in the life of the Apostle Paul when he was imprisoned, as described in Philippians 1. Paul remained confident that his imprisonment would somehow advance the gospel message. In our own lives, we can accept the inner experiences and life circumstances that we cannot change, looking for God's sovereignty and infinite wisdom in the process. One of the most profound examples is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane in the Gospels. He accepted the cup that his Father offered, pressing forward toward the cross in spite of his agony and anxiety about what was yet to come. In our own lives, we can work towards surrendering to God's will, making room for painful experiences reminiscent of Jesus in the garden. In each of these biblical examples, the characters were faced with difficult circumstances that likely led to significant psychological pain, which is an inevitable part of life. However, because of their unwavering faith in God, they were able to press forward, accepting the pain based on the firm hope they placed in God's sovereign, loving hand guiding the outcome. Understanding these biblical metaphors can help us navigate our own journey of acceptance and hopeful endurance. Now let's move on to the practical part where we explore some exercises and techniques that can help you experientially understand and apply these concepts in your daily life. We're going to look at several transformative exercises that will help you put the concepts of acceptance and hopeful endurance into practice. Make sure to create a comfortable and sacred space for each exercise, inviting the presence of God to guide you through these experiences. What may be helpful is to watch these exercises first and then select one or two that you'd like to try out. Then set out some time and space to get the most out of these exercises. If you prefer to read these exercises on your own, these can be found in the workbook Acceptance and Commitment Therapy for Christian Clients by Joshua Knapp. A link will be in the description below. This exercise requires you to write, so go ahead and get a pen and paper or create a note on your smartphone, tablet, or computer. Begin by reflecting on the painful emotions you have historically tried to avoid, such as anxiety, sadness, anger, fear, or shame. Go ahead and list these on the left side. Now sink into what it felt like when you used avoidance strategies to make the painful emotions go away. Invite God into this space, asking Him for guidance. Think about what happened as a result of using avoidance. Document the cost of avoidance in terms of missing out on life. Now, it may be helpful to list the negative outcomes first and then come back to the positive outcomes later. As you reflect on this exercise, really try to consider how life might have been different if you would have accepted the inevitability of the emotion. In the Christian life, acceptance may bring a cost of more painful emotions, but what positive outcomes would there be? If you focused on Jesus and following Him, how would that change strategies used to avoid emotional pain? So go ahead and list the positives on the right side. I would like you first to read Psalms 46, which I will put on the screen. And I want you to reflect on the ability to let go of avoidance efforts in order to be still in the presence of God, who is sovereign. More to the point, Psalms 46, verse 10, uses the Hebrew word rapha, meaning to cease striving, with the New International Version of the Bible translating the terms as a phrase, be still, used just after the psalmist's claim that God destroys weapons on the battlefield. Some have interpreted the be still phrase to mean something along the lines of set down your weapons. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice. The earth melts. The Lord is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." In this exercise, I would like for you to imagine that you are on a battlefield, using every weapon imaginable to avoid your pain. Whatever weapons you have used in the past, your job is to simply lay them down right now, given that God is in control. In other words, God can destroy every weapon, including your best avoidance strategies. Because God is sovereign, you can stop all your attempts to avoid your pain. When you're ready, close your eyes and begin to repeat the phrase, "Be still." You may want to inhale, be, like, and exhale, still, still. Try this activity for about 10 minutes, with each in-breath capturing your willingness to let go of all of your efforts to strive towards symptom elimination. Instead, just rest in God's presence, recognizing that He is God. Continue for about 10 minutes total, sinking into the phrase, "Be still." If you can, try not to move in any way, feeling God's presence as He surrounds you with His loving arms. There's nowhere else to be and nothing else to do as you drop all of your weapons on the battlefield, ceasing all needless activities because God will protect you. Now see if you can reflect on this exercise and write down some of your thoughts on this Be Still meditation. What powerful emotions arose within the inner world. As we wrap up this video, Act for Christians, we've covered a lot about acceptance and endurance, and there's much more content to share in future videos. To review, the path to acceptance or avoidance lies before us, and we can choose to accept and endure inner struggles or avoid them and miss out on large chunks of life. You've also taken a glimpse into the life of early desert Christians who resided in their cells, enduring and embracing inner experiences, all while fostering a deeper sense of hope and patience. Metaphors like Paul's thorn or stories of biblical characters like Noah and Jesus shed light onto the path of acceptance, showing that it's possible to embrace your pain with faith in God. The Mary mode exemplifies the better choice, to fix her eyes on Jesus and sit at His feet. Throughout the exercises in this video, my hope is that you've had the chance to try on acceptance, strengthening your ability to endure, knowing that Jesus is with you in every passing moment. Walking with Him makes it easier to make room for inner struggles, as you are never alone in your journey. By yielding to His providence, you can release the tendency to judge your unpleasant emotions, understanding that He has a plan for you, both in this life and the next. In the next video on Act for Christians, we'll unpack the present moment awareness process in ACT. You'll discover how connecting with each passing moment overlaps with the desert monk's emphasis on silence and stillness with God. Living the present allows you to loosen the grip of emotional disorders, often rooted in rumination of the past or anxieties of the future. Remember, God is in the present moment, and as a disciple of Jesus, staying focused on Him day by day, minute by minute, can lead to an exciting, vibrant life filled with adventure and hope as you walk down the paths that He's chosen for you. Thank you for joining me today on this exploration. Your journey towards a more mindful and improved life starts with a single click.